Hello, it's Who Time, and today we're talking about Doctor Who B&M figure sets once again. Why so soon? Well, following my recent video speculating and predicting upcoming Doctor Who B&M releases for this year and beyond, I had expected an official announcement from character to follow suit soon after that video had come out back in March. But here we are in early May, and we haven't heard a dicky bird. Why? Last year, in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic wreaking havoc, we managed to get several waves of sets. We got a first wave in March, April time, 2020, then another in June, July, with a final wave in October, November time. We were spoilt, and this doesn't seem to be the same plan for this year. So again, we all ask, why? Well, this is just me pontificating here, but obviously these sets and waves are all planned well in advance, sometimes years in advance for things like Marvel and Star Wars stuff. But here, given the numbers that are a bit smaller than those figure ranges, I assume it's probably up to a year in advance they plan Doctor Who B&M releases. Perhaps character made the judgment call to simply postpone future releases until there was more clarity on the COVID restrictions. No doubt the UK going in and out, in out, shake it all about, out of lockdowns won't have helped with supply chains and of course sales. No one can buy Doctor Who sets if B&M is closed. They can't buy them online from B&M either because their website doesn't have that facility. This would go a long way to explain why 2020 sets are still sitting on B&M shelves, and also why they're drastically reduced in price. Lockdowns have clearly affected sales. Now B&M are trying to clear this stock, presumably ahead of new future releases. Perhaps character and B&M took the view, let's postpone new releases until you've cleared all this old stock from 2020 off the shelves. Or maybe the lack of sales has given B&M cold feet, and they've lost interest in the figure range. I doubt it's the latter suggestion. I assume they blame the continuing pandemic and the ever-changing government COVID restrictions for the dip in sales. With all government COVID restrictions planned to be fully lifted on the 21st of June in the UK, I assume character will want to release new sets after this date, since everyone will be allowed to go wherever they want and be free. So I assume an announcement will come out fairly soon after this video. Fingers firmly crossed. So what will be in these new sets? Do we know anything further? Well, there's been a leak of sorts. I'd put it firmly under rumours in your head for now and take a pinch of salt, but it's very exciting, and it could be the next evolution in the Doctor Who B&M figure range. So the leak originated from a Facebook group called B&M Doctor Who Sets. A chap who says he works at B&M disclosed the following information. Now I won't disclose this guy's name, because I don't want him to get bombarded with messages and or abuse. But here are a couple of snapshots from the group with his name blurred out. He claims that in July 2021 we will see a Keys of Marinus set, a Sensorites set, then a Power/Day of the Daleks 3-pack. Then in October 2021 we will be blessed with an Earthshock set, a 5 Doctors set, an Evil/Planet of the Daleks set, then a First Doctor and TARDIS set. Finally, in December 2021, we will be treated to Doctor Who and the Giant Robot set. So that's 8 sets in total, less than last year obviously, but it all sounds like a very exciting prospect. There's no intel on the specific figures featured in each set, which gets the imagination going. So let's run through them and think of the possibilities. So first off, we have the Keys of Marinus and Sensorites sets. 2 60s stories. Say what? I literally said in the previous video that I thought character hated on the 60s era of the show, but if this is true, we could get the First Doctor's companions, Ian, Barbara and Susan. We could even get some monsters, perhaps a Vord and a Sensorite. I always moan about the lack of new monster figures, so this would be dreamy. These are both supposedly coming out in July, so I doubt we'll just get all 3 companions in both sets with different paint apps, because that wouldn't sell very well. So I hope we get a mix of monsters and companions across these 2 sets, maybe with the Doctor thrown in there. That would be very tantalising. I'd love that. The only thing that makes me question the legitimacy of these sets is that I just can't think of any existing figure body sculpts that they can just straightforwardly reuse. That's the precedent they've set for the last few years of releases after all. Just take a figure body, new head sculpt, maybe another bit of clothing. Anything that currently exists would just need significant retooling. But perhaps the use of rubber torso wrap pieces is the way forward. Allow me to explain. For Ian, I don't think they'll go for his look from the Keys of Marinus, as he's still wearing his elaborate outfit from the preceding story, Marco Polo, and that's just too much effort. But in the Sensorites, he's just wearing a simple turtleneck jumper with trousers and shoes. So I feel they could create a new rubber jumper torso piece that can stick onto an existing figure body that has trousers and shoes. This is very similar to the recent unit figures we got in the 2020 B&M sets, where we got Benton, Yates and the Brigadier. They originally took a Brigadier body from, I think, the Demons and the Three Doctors sets from years ago, and then just chucked a new rubber torso piece on top of that. For Barbara to get her look from the Keys of Marinus, they could use the recent Power of Kroll Romana figure. Simply use a new rubber torso piece, put over the top, obviously a new head sculpt of course. If they were feeling generous, they could change the legs as well for straightforward trouser legs and shoes. Since that Romana figure is originally a Sarah Jane Smith figure from her own spin-off series and her own figure range, they could just use one of the other figures from that range for extra straightforward trousers. For Susan, I feel like they could do her look from either of those stories, from the Keys of Marinus or the Sensorites. Simply use a Sarah Jane Smith figure or a Clara figure as a base, and then put a new torso wrap on the top half. For the monsters, looking at the Vord, it's a bit tricky. I suppose the Invasion Cyberman body is pretty suitable actually, since it's a replica of a 60s scuba diving suit, much like the Vord. That's the basis of that outfit. But there's a lot of holes for where the piping and the chest unit have to slot into this figure. So there would have to be a lot of retooling of this figure, as well as a new head, hands and feet. By comparison, the Sensorite would be a lot easier. Personally, I'd go with using the Axon Man figure as a base, change the lower leg sculpts, the shin part down to the ankle and foot, to reflect the circular feet that the Sensorites have, and obviously add a new head sculpt. If these 60 sets are true, we will almost certainly get all 3 of the first Doctor's companions. As for the monsters from each of these stories, that's pushing the boat out a bit more, but not impossible. I think it really does depend on the figure line's budget. Perhaps with these fewer sets rumoured, they can spend more on each set. Let's just hope that we get both the monsters and the companions from both these stories. That would be super exciting. Next up in July, it's been rumoured that there will be a Power/Day of the Daleks 3-pack. Odd, since up to this point we've had Dalek 2-packs for each of the Dalek stories in all the Hartnell era, so naturally we're expecting Troughton Dalek stories to be next. There were rumblings amongst the community that since Power and Evil the Daleks have plain silver Daleks in them, and we've had many sets with that sort of Dalek, that they may mix it up to keep the interest of more casual buyers. So assuming it's a 3-pack, I would assume they would have one standard Power of the Daleks Dalek in it, then the Gold Supreme Dalek, and then the standard Gunmetal Grey Dalek from Day of the Daleks. In the other snapshot that I took from the leak source, the story seems to change in that a little, as it sounds like the Power and Day of the Daleks could still be 2 separate sets, which brings into question the legitimacy of these leaks. Surely if you want people to get on board with these leaks and believe them, you need to stick to your story. In this instance, the only difference would be obviously the separate sets, so Power of the Daleks would have 2 standard Power of the Daleks in it. Perhaps one would have a full iris, and then maybe the second Dalek would have a slightly smaller, focused iris, a bit like they've done before in the previous Hartnell era Dalek story sets. Moving on to October 2021, we'll apparently get 4 sets. First off, we'll get an Earthshock set. Ooh, I'm sure a lot of you would love to collect and build a huge army of Earthshock Cybermen. I certainly have over the years, as you can see from my shelves and on my desk. I think I have a problem. There's too many. Perhaps in this set we'll get a 5th Doctor figure, a standard Earthshock Cyberman, and a Cyber Leader. Or maybe, since we've had a lot of 5th Doctor figure releases of late, especially in B&M the last few years, maybe they could chuck in a Tegan from this story in here. In Earthshock, she wears a boiler suit, a bit like the other soldiers in it. You could take the recently used Sarah Jane body / Martha Jones Series 3 finale body, give it a repaint, and add a Tegan head sculpt. What about Adric? You can add Adric to this set, of course. It's his last story, and spoilers, he, dies. There's a perfect way to put him in there. As I suggested in my previous video, I think you could take a Laszlo figure, give the body a repaint, and then just put a new head sculpt on top. Next up, the 5 Doctors set. Now there are a few opportunities here. Personally, my favourite options would be the following. A 2nd and or 3rd Doctor variant from this story. Maybe a Richard Hurndall 1st Doctor. Obviously they can just take the 1st Doctor body and then add a new head sculpt. Or maybe this is the chance to release an Anthony Ainley Master in his proper costume. They already have the head sculpt, so perhaps the use of a new rubber torso wrap sculpt could come into play here for the body, and maybe some new arm sculpts. Maybe we could even get a Rastan Warrior robot. You can simply take the Axon Man body and then add a new head and hands. Or do you think they will add companions or other monsters to this set? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. After that, Evil/Planet of the Daleks set. Based on the Power/Day of the Daleks set that was mooted earlier, I assume it's a 3-pack once again. In which case, I assume we'll probably get a Dalek Emperor Guard from Evil of the Daleks, and then the Dalek Supreme from Planet of the Daleks, as well as a standard drone Dalek from that same story. But if we go back to the 2nd snapshot from the source of the leak, he makes it sound like the Evil of the Daleks set has been dropped entirely, or has now become a character online exclusive. In which case, will we get the Emperor Dalek? I'll be surprised if we did, pleasantly surprised, but I doubt it. Last in October, we have a 1st Doctor and TARDIS set, the only Doctor TARDIS set mooted for this year. Now this is one I'm after for sure. I'm sure, like a lot of you, I missed out on this original release of this set, which now goes for silly money on eBay. Whether this release will have the 1st Doctor as seen in an unearthly child like the original set, or if it will have the standard version of this 1st Doctor, we don't know. All I know is that I'm after his version of the TARDIS, and I'll add that to my shelf. Definitely a smart release if it's true, fingers crossed. Then last but not least, in December 2021, our supposed final release of the year will be the Doctor Who and the Giant Robot set. Well, this clearly indicates it'll be a set based on the 4th Doctor's debut story, Robot. So, we'll get a Season 12 4th Doctor re-release, along with the K1 Robot. Now, the K1 Robot is an exceptionally rare builder figure, back from Wave 1 of the classic Doctor Who figure range. That was over 10 years ago. I already have him, unfortunately, on my shelf, as you can see, but I'm sure a lot of you don't, so this will be a very welcome re-release. This lovely figure did appear in the background of the last character announcement video with Al Diwar. Was this a little hint for the future? Well, we'll find out.
Time will tell. Always does.
Going back to the snapshots from the source of the leak, specifically looking at the first snapshot, you can see he gives product codes as evidence for the legitimacy of these set names. Now, I ran these codes through the B&M app on my phone and through the B&M website and had no luck. Perhaps if you know someone who works at B&M, they can check these codes on their system in store. Otherwise, I have no way to ratify these leaks. So I would take a pinch of salt and just hope that these sets are in fact true. Also, I'd keep an ear out in June-July time for an official announcement from character, I'd say. As always, don't forget to like and comment on this video, go and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, go and click on that bell for notifications of new content, and go and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My Twitter handle is @WhoTimeUK, and similarly, Instagram is instagram.com/WhoTimeUK. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.